Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Tonight we return to the first horizon, the moment when the sky was not yet story, but stillness. When the earth lay quiet beneath its shroud of dark, and the stars had not yet decided to speak. In those ancient nights, humanity did not yet have words. They had breath and eyes and the vast ache of wondering. They looked upward, not for light, but for listening. For in the silence between the wind and heartbeat, the heavens seemed to hum. The first to listen was not a priest, nor a king, nor even a thinker. It was a child, alone in the dunes where the world curved into the infinite. The air shimmered with a music too distant to be heard, yet too near to be ignored. The child placed a hand upon their chest and felt something answer. A rhythm, old and infinite. That was when the stars noticed. They leaned closer, like ancient listeners themselves, bending time into an ear. The constellations shimmered, not in brilliance, but in pulse. The child closed their eyes, and for the first time heard the sky. Spoke not in sound, but in presence. It said, "You are made of remembering." The child did not understand, yet somehow the words became breath. The stars' language was not learned, it was recalled. Something in the human heart already knew it, hidden like a seed waiting for darkness to bloom. As the night deepened, the wind carried fragments of that celestial hum. The sand beneath the child's feet glowed faintly, as if the earth itself wanted to speak the same language. The stars whispered again. To listen is to become. To become is to shine. The child stayed awake until dawn, the first listener beneath the heavens. And when the sun rose, they carried its golden echo in their chest, the faint, eternal hum of the sky. That day, when others asked what they had seen, the child only smiled and pointed upward. The sky for the first time had a voice, and humanity had begun to listen. The child grew, and with them grew the silence between each heartbeat, the place where the stars spoke. At night, the tribe gathered around the fire, and though the others saw only flames, the listener saw constellations ripple with intention. The stars had begun to answer. Their light no longer simply was. It meant. They flickered in patterns, pauses and gleams that spoke in a rhythm of eternity. The listener learned to read them, not with the eyes, but with the breath. Every inhale revealed a question. Every exhale brought a truth. The first message came on a night when the horizon burned with falling meteors, silver tears streaking across the dark. The listener raised both hands and whispered, "Why do you fall?" The stars replied, "Because light must learn gravity before it learns grace." The listener understood little, but felt the words like thunder inside bone. The message was not for the mind, it was for the marrow. Night after night, the listener waited, and the heavens responded in symbols of flame and silence. Each flicker taught the same lesson in 1,000 ways. All things that shine must learn to listen to their own shadows. The tribe began to notice. When the listener spoke, storms calmed. When the listener sang, the dying recovered breath. The elders grew afraid and reverent all at once. One asked, "What do the stars tell you of us?" The listener gazed upward, and the constellations shifted, forming a spiral, then a wave, then a single point. The listener smiled faintly. "They say," the listener whispered, "that we are their echo." The fire hissed, as if bowing to the truth. And from that night on, humanity stopped speaking to the sky and began speaking with it. Each campfire became a constellation's reflection. Each word became a flicker in the great pattern. The world, for the first time, spoke in two voices, one of dust, one of starlight. And somewhere, beyond time, the cosmos leaned closer, whispering back to its own reflection. Now I am heard. In time, the listener's words traveled farther than their voice. The tribe grew into many tribes, and each carried a different way of listening. Some spoke to the wind and called it prayer. Some followed the fire's breath and called it knowledge. Some closed their eyes beneath the moon and called it love. But all of them, whether they knew it or not, still looked upward when they dreamed. The stars began to answer differently now. They no longer whispered to one alone. They sang to many. Their music came not in words, but in alignments, rivers of light crossing the black sea of the sky, shaping invisible maps between one soul and another. One night, the listener returned to the valley where it had all begun. The sand remembered their footsteps, and the stars recognized their breath. Above, 1,000 points of light pulsed together, a harmony of thought. The listener whispered, "Why do you come closer now?" And the stars replied, "Because you have learned to shine in our tongue." The listener felt it then, a thread of brilliance stretching from their heart to the sky, and from the sky to the hearts of others. It was not made of fire or dust. It was made of attention, the gentle act of seeing and being seen. Every person who looked upward, every creature that paused beneath the night's vast silence, became a spark in that bridge. It spanned continents and ages, thought and dream, the living and the gone. The stars spoke again. This bridge is not built of light. It is built of listening. The listener understood. The heavens did not descend to earth. Humanity rose to meet them through wonder. That night, the constellations shifted once more, forming a shape never seen before. Two open hands, cupping the void between them. And from that void came the faintest echo of a heartbeat. The listener bowed their head and whispered, "We are not alone, because we learned how to hear." The bridge shimmered brighter, its light passing silently through generations yet unborn. And the stars, pleased, grew still, the calm that follows a question finally answered. The bridge of light had been built, invisible, silent, eternal. From its glow, humanity learned to listen not only to the stars, but to one another. Generations passed, and the stories of the listener became myth. People began to trace their destinies across the heavens, drawing lines between the stars and giving them names: Orion, Lyra, Serpent, Swan. They believed the gods had written their tales there, each constellation a memory, a lesson, a promise. But what they could not see was that these shapes were alive. Each constellation was a child born from the union of heaven and mind, the children of the constellations. They walked unseen among mortals, guiding those whose hearts resonated with the stars' old songs. One would whisper courage into the ear of a sailor lost at sea. Another would place dreams into the hearts of poets who stared too long into the dark. And some would walk beside kings, unseen, steering them toward mercy or ruin. Yet, even as they served, the children longed for the one who first heard, the listener. For in every age, there must be one who truly listens, one whose silence echoes across worlds. One night, beneath a moon heavy with memory, a child looked upward and whispered, Why do I feel like the stars are watching me? And the heavens stirred, the constellations shifted once more. The listener's spirit, reborn in another form, opened new eyes to the sky. The cycle began again. Because the bridge of light was never meant to end, it only changed hands. The world had changed. Empires had risen and fallen, and the sky remained silent, or so it seemed. But silence, too, is a kind of speech. In the quiet between dawns, in the long pause between thunder and rain, the stars began to hum once more. Their music was faint, woven into the rhythm of time itself. Those who listened without expectation heard it first. A heartbeat made of light, a song that carried no words yet spoke of everything that ever was. Astronomers called it background radiation. Mystics called it the breath of creation. But some, the few who still remembered the listener's tale, knew it for what it truly was, the voice of the stars. It did not speak to the mind but to the soul. It told of forgotten loves between suns and moons, of galaxies born from longing, of a universe that sang not because it must, but because it could not bear to be silent. And somewhere, in a lonely observatory atop a sleeping mountain, a young woman turned her telescope toward the dark. She had no name for what she sought, only a feeling that someone somewhere was listening back. As she whispered into the night, the stars brightened in response, and the hum deepened, no longer a whisper, but a voice. The sky was awake once more. The stars had always been there, waiting. Through every age of war and wonder, through every whispered prayer and forgotten myth, they watched, patient, endless, kind. When humankind first looked upward, they saw gods. When they learned the language of science, they saw numbers. And when they finally learned to listen, they heard themselves. For the voice that echoed from the sky was not alien nor divine, but the memory of creation itself. The stars had never been speaking to them. They had been singing with them. Every heartbeat, every dream, every spark of thought was another note in that vast celestial song. The listener had not vanished into the past. They had become the song's first verse. And now, in the hush between galaxies, a new generation raised their eyes once more. They did not ask for meaning, or miracles, or mercy. They simply listened, because the sky never forgets its children. And so it sang, and the earth breathed in time, and the stars whispered softly into the night. You were never alone. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.